Alright, welcome back to Project Cheap Garage for the third and final episode on the redo of the look of Cheap One. Today we're going to finally put on the sponsors' logos and get this all wrapped up. Then we're going to move on to some mechanical issues that I need to address before we take this thing out next weekend. We've got a cracked oil pan. As you can see, it's kind of hemorrhaging some oil out. And so we're going to add a new oil pan. We're going to put that on. We're going to lengthen this bump stop because it was too short. That's actually how we cracked the oil pan. The truss come up and hit it. We're also going to build a skid plate on it to help because I busted another oil pan hitting a rock a while back. So we're going to do a makeshift skid plate on the back just to protect the oil pan to keep from breaking it again, because this is already the second one broken on this Jeep. So let's get to it. Okay, we're going to start out in the red, putting the gray fin logo on. Made it black to contrast, so now I'm just going to measure everything out, get it where I want it, and we'll start laying it out. Okay, we've got the gray fin sticker stuck on. I got a few air bubbles to get out, but we'll get to that. I think that contrasts pretty good. So now we're going to move on to the sides over here, and on the other side we're going to put the S'more logo on both sides to represent for them, and then we'll move on from there. So let's get started. Alright, we got big bright red S'more logos that we're going to stick on right here. I think it should look pretty good. Let's get to sticking. Okay, we've got all the stickers installed. We've got S'more on both sides of the hood. We got gray fin. I think that the stickers line up nicely with the paint, so they're looking pretty smooth and it flows together well. Next we're going to put our newest sponsor, David Jones Off-Road Photography. If you guys haven't checked his Facebook page out, it's Fans of David Jones on Facebook. Give him a like. He always posts all kinds of awesome off-road pictures from out at S'more and other parks. He's not only a sponsor but now a resident photographer for all of our off-road adventures and stuff, so give him a follow. You'll get all kinds of cool content. But for now, let's get back to getting this thing going. Okay, this thing's looking sharp. We got David Jones' off-road photography on. We've got S'more, gray fin. We got the matching stickers on the other side. This thing's starting to look pretty sweet. We're going to start addressing some of the mechanical issues on this thing, try to get them fixed up. Now we're probably going to pull the spring and lengthen that. It needs another inch of length in it, so I think we're going to go ahead and do that. So let's get to it. Okay, now we're going to take out this spring so I can lengthen my bump stop so that the truss will stop hitting the oil pan. And to do so, since I don't have a lift and I'm just doing this on the floor, we're going to jack it up on the frame so we can push the body up and let the spring drop out. I'm going to put a jack stand under here just to keep it nice and stable. if you're running a stock style rig and you're removing your spring, you'd normally have a sway bar that it bolts up in here, and you'll want to remove that off the axle so the axle can drop farther to make it easier getting your spring out. But we're going to drop it out and then use these spring compressors to compress it the rest of the way. So we'll get started on that, get that spring out, then we can lengthen our bump stop and hope that that fixes the issue. So let's get started. Okay, I just want to make the disclaimer that this is far from the safest way to hold this up. But due to what I have, this is how I have to do it because it's so tall. As you can see, I've welded myself together this extension for my jack because this jack basically maxes out once it hits the frame rail normal. So I've had to add this to be able to jack it up. And this is a horrible setup. Don't ever do this, ever. So let's get back to it. Okay, to get the springs out of here, we're going to use these spring compressors. We're going to compress the spring down, pull it out. Okay, as you can see, we've compressed this section of the spring right here. Between that and lifting this side up to where the axle drops out, there should be enough for us to pull this out and get it out of the way. Now when you're running these, you always want to be sure you do like so much on this side, then so much on this side, then so much on this side, back and forth, kind of as you've seen me do. If you don't, they'll get in a bind, they won't pull the spring evenly, you might just get it in a pinch where you can't get it off or whatever. So just always remember a little on this side, a little on this side. Same when you're taking it off. It'll really bind up when you're taking it off. So you let a little out of the other side. But let's go ahead and get this removed and keep continuing on. Okay, we've got the spring taken out. And you can see you just leave this on it until you're done so that it just stays compressed. You don't have to mess with that. The rubber grommet that sets on the top of your spring just to keep it quiet so it's not banging. Now we're going to cut this off right here, and I'll probably cut the bottom off and just put a longer tube in. This tube wasn't quite long enough, so we're going to go another inch longer and limit the up travel of the axle so that we don't keep busting my oil pan. We're going to get this done and then we'll put a new oil pan on, but for now let's get this sucker cut off. Okay, we've got the new one cut, welded in. We lengthened it out 1.25 inches instead of just 1 inch. I felt like we'd just err on the margin of safety there. I'd rather lose 1/4 inch of travel than bust another oil pan. Kind of tired of busting oil pans. So from here, we'll put the foam insert back in after this cools off a little bit, and then we'll slide the spring back over this and get everything dropped back down, and then we're going to move on to getting this oil pan taken off. We'll clean up and put for the gasket and everything, and then we'll put on the new oil pan and get that ready so we're not leaking oil everywhere anymore. So I guess with that being said, let's wait for this to cool and then get back after it. Okay, we've got this cooled off. I got it spray painted and dried up so it looks all nice and neat, won't get all rusty and look crappy. I put the foam piece back in, so now we're going to shove this spring back in there and get this thing back on the ground so we can move on to the next part of this progress. Let's go. Okay, we've got the spring back in, bump stops lengthened, so all this is ready to just drop back down and get it back on the ground, get started on the oil pan. So we've got This oil pan from a different motor I have needs to be cleaned up a little bit. We'll take care of that and then get it on installed on there. So let's get after it. Okay, as you can see, we're draining out the oil so we can remove the oil pan and not get covered with it. Once it's done, come in here and we'll remove all these bolts on each side of the oil pan and drop the oil pan out. Then we'll put the new oil pan on, get it all sealed back up and put some new oil in it. We should be good to go. As you can see, I busted this up here a couple times. I've put some sealer on it and it held all right until I busted it a second time over here. The first time I busted it on this side because the bump stops were too short. So I sealed it all up, lengthened the bump stops. Turned out that side was alright, but since this side kind of comes up a little bit and whatnot right here, this side wasn't quite high enough. So when I was filming one of the videos, I kind of hopped into a ditch, and when I did, the axle came up and busted this side of the oil pan. So since we're just leaking everywhere and it's got gasket all over the front, we're just gonna take it off and put a new one on. We should be good. I mean, we've lengthened out the bump stops, so I guess let's let this finish draining and we'll get after it. Okay, we've got the old oil pan out. As you can see here where it cracks, that's where it's leaking through. It's cracked all the way across the front there. There's a, oh no, that's not a crack actually, that's just some gasket. Then you can see across here, and it just spider webbed it big time. All right there, came all the way up. And if I had to guess, I'd say it ran right under this gasket out. The good news is there's no water in the oil after running on the trail like that, so that's a plus. At least we don't have to worry about that. It's also a good sign nothing's wrong with my motor, which is always a plus. So I guess let's get the other one cleaned up right here. Let's get this guy clean and get it put on. Okay, we've got the oil pan all cleaned up, gasket on it. We're getting ready to slap it back underneath, put some oil on it, and fire this thing up, and hopefully nothing leaks. Okay, when you're putting the oil pan on, one thing you want to make sure you do is start all of your bolts all the way around the pan. Just get them started so it'll hold it up there and everything. But be sure all of them go into their holes, they're not cross-threaded or anything like that. And what I usually do is I take my impact and just kind of run them real slow, just where it snugs every single one of them up. I usually start in the middle and I'll do like the outsides and come down here to the ends and then tighten the centers. And then you want to go back and actually tighten them up. Just, I mean, you don't got to crank them down, but just tighten them up. So that's just a word from the wife. Okay, we've got the new oil pan on underneath, so hopefully no more leaking. We got no more cracks, so that's good. I'm about to crank it a little bit with the ignition off, get some of the oil pumped through since we drained it. Then we'll fire it up make sure everything sounds all right. All right, well, just to recap for the day, we got stickers on, so now that part of it is finished. I think it's looking really good. It's a good representation for sponsors. We got the new oil pan put on, so now we're not got cracks and leaking everywhere. Then we also lengthened this bump stop, so hopefully we don't break any more oil pans. I guess for today, that's gonna be it. The last thing is, this video, once again, was sponsored by Southern Missouri Off-Road Ranch. They're a great sponsor of mine, and if you haven't ever been out there, you should definitely check it out. There's videos of me out there. You can get on my Facebook and see that, pictures from out there. This winter, on December 14th, I believe, I'll be holding an event out there to do just a winter run, and it'll be to collect donations like clothing and things like that. There's actually a list on my Facebook page of stuff that can be donated. But for Isabel's house here in Springfield, it's just a home where they accept kids of neglect or abuse or whatever, and just try to help them out. So it's going to be a really good thing to donate for. You can get information once again on the Project Cheap Facebook page. Like I said, if you haven't checked out some more, definitely check them out and definitely make a trip out there. With any luck, you'll see me. That's it for this week on Project Cheap Garage. See you next time.